Well, it's 10 o'clock by my watch, so let's get this thing started. Good morning, and welcome to the first webinar edition of Center to Nursery's What's New for Next Spring. Normally, this would be part of our dealer day, which unfortunately, because of COVID, it like many other things, just didn't happen this year. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bob Blue. I am the Vice President and part owner of Center to Nursery in Bristol, New Jersey. And we normally do this every year just to give our customers a little sneak peek of things, most things that you've seen in the catalog, some that missed it, some that are late additions, and just giving you a few key points on why we brought them into our lineup. So a few things, where we find our suppliers, or where we find our products, I should say, suppliers, brokers, breeder reps, and a little bit of travel. And the travel is unfortunately something that's completely stopped, because these are normally the stops we would make every single year. And guess what? Out of all of these trips, the only one that happened was Star Roses and Plants, because they're an hour away and they let me walk on their property with a mask on, and Mount Cuba, same deal. So a lot of these trials we had to do virtual, the same way we're doing this right now. So next year, fingers crossed that COVID is a thing of the past, we'll be back on the road again, finding you some really great plants. Both of these shows, Planetarium show in the summer, that was canceled. As of right now, the IPM show, which is scheduled for January, may happen, may not. All signs point to that not happening, because they pull in about 20,000 people from about 75 different countries. So probably not the best thing to bring us all to Western Germany. So a few thoughts on 2021 based on what we saw from this past spring, based on some market research that a few of the larger horticultural companies have done. Some new gardeners will be back, not all of them. A lot of the research that we have seen are, they're estimating that about 40% of the people that are brand new to garden center buying this year will be back next year. So what does that mean? It means that's a good thing for our industry. It means that we are gaining most likely lifelong customers. We are gaining people that for the last 10 years, everybody's been wondering how to market to millennials, how to market to Gen X, how to market to Gen Y, how to market to Gen Z. Turns out all you need is a global pandemic, and all of a sudden everybody wants to start gardening. The new gardeners are yearning for knowledge and guidance. You know, we saw our number of emails coming through our website of people asking for guidance, asking for information about how to grow things or where to go to buy things. That all skyrocketed through April and continued well into the summer months. So these people are not as educated as the gardeners of 30 years ago. They're just not, because this has not been on the radar until now. And so we as an industry need to do a good job through marketing, merchandising, labeling, signage. It all has to be in line with getting people as much information as possible, because they are literally a sponge, just soaking up everything they can get their hands on. You can even look at YouTube video watch counts, what they were 9 months ago versus where they are now for a lot of gardening and how to DIY project sort of YouTube channels. That's all gone through the roof, and we need to be part of that conversation and make sure that it steers it in the right direction, that people are getting good information that makes them successful gardeners, because a successful gardener is a return gardener. And lastly, we saw very strong growth in edibles for the last 2 years coming into COVID. This year was just off the charts. We were totally caught off guard. There was no way that we could have produced the amount of edible products to fulfill 100% of what everybody was looking for. There's just no way. We did everything in our power, and unfortunately with what we had in place, there was only so much that we could get done in the short period of time that we had this spring. The one thing we have committed to is basically a very large percentage of our capital expenditure this year is going to expanding our edible growing space. And so we're increasing about 40% of our growing space, 40% new for 2021, just for Chef Jeff production. So let's get right into it. So this will kind of go in the same order as the catalog if you want to follow along. If not, don't worry about it. And also, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A button through this Zoom webinar. You can send us a question, and my sister Amy is in the next room on her laptop. She can see the questions, and her and I can answer them as they come in, or we can wait until the end. And also, this will also be posted on our YouTube channel probably later today or tomorrow morning so that you could rewatch any of it. Oh, I didn't talk about this plant. So Calendula Bon Bon mix, that was actually a by name request of a few customers. The flowers can be dried and are edible. We've even seen some people who have done some recipes of taking the flowers and putting them in ice cubes and adding them to sort of summer cocktails. It's just a nice, pretty thing to have in the garden. It's also great for pollinators and will attract some caterpillars as well, some of the good caterpillars. New cilantro, it's a lemon scented cilantro. It's very, very similar in appearance, probably almost identical to the regular Santo cilantro that you get from us, but it just has more of a citrusy flavor to it. And mint orange, everybody seems to be liking some of the oddball mints that we've thrown out there over the past years, the pear mint and the strawberry mint. So orange mint is a type of peppermint that has a very strong citrusy flavor. Italian oregano is actually a hybrid of oregano and some other herbs. So it's more of a heartier, I would say, more of like a robust aroma. So let's say with the flavor and punch of the hot and spicy oregano, but without the actual heat spiciness to it. And Mexican oregano is another species of oregano that's very common in Mexican cuisine. It's actually not grown much in the States, but we found it through a couple of contacts of ours, and we thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. It's a good grower. It grows just as well as regular oregano, but has a bit more of a spicy, peppery flavor. Maybe not as much as the normal hot and spicy, but definitely a different kick of oregano. I should also add that oregano seems to be selling out like we can't get enough oregano, and that's pre-COVID as well. A new tea, this is mint grapefruit, in line with what we were talking about. Everybody seems to like all the oddball mints. The grapefruit mint is a type of spearmint that we think specifically will do really well as a tea label, and will do really well as when actually brewed into tea. So new in the tea collection for the first tea in a while. On to some vegetables. Beans and peas have been selling like crazy, much like oregano. Even pre-COVID, the demand for beans and peas seems to be strong and ever growing. So we've brought on actually 4 new beans/peas. So Green Arrow is an heirloom bush pea, been around for a very long time. Jade bush bean is actually it's an industry standard bush bean used by home gardeners and commercial growers and everyone in between. King Tut is a purple pea. We have no idea if this is true, but the legend has it is that the seeds for this pea were found inside of King Tut's tomb. I don't know if that's true or not, but we do know that it's been around for at least the last 100 years since King Tut's tomb has been opened up. So it has been around a while. The peas inside are green. But it's a shelling pea that's purple, and I think it's absolutely beautiful in the landscape for what that's worth. For those of you that are into Brie Arthur and her foodscaping, this is a great example of something to add some flair and some edible options to the landscape. And Lincoln shelling pea. Lincoln is another one of those industry standards for shelling peas, both for gardeners and commercial growers alike. New cucumber, just one. It's Gherkin, which is a Pan-American seed product. It's a high-yielding gherkin type. It's a slightly larger than the other gherkin, the standard gherkin that we grow. I'd say this one gets probably about 3 to 4 inches long, maybe an inch to an inch and an eighth wide. But it's still that puckered, pockmarked exterior that you expect from a gherkin. It's going to be great for pickling. It's just an ideal option if you can only have room for a few amount of cucumber plants, because they do get a little bit on the larger side. Gherkin is going to be a great choice because of its high yielding abilities. And Pepper Red Bull, this is just another standard red skin bell pepper. We realized for a while this past spring, we realized a lot of things that we just were short on. And one of the things that we found is we really only had one standard red skin bell pepper, and that was Red Beauty. And we thought, well, we'd hate to get into a situation where, and what happened is 1 week our seed supplier failed to get us those seedlings. And so we had no Red Beauty that week, and like, okay, we need to hedge our bets. So we really should probably have an option of two for things like we had California Wonder and Big Bertha, and we had, jalapeno and mucho nacho, and then we had Red Beauty, and we had nothing to go along with it. So that's where Red Bull came into our lineup. Okay, so this is something totally out of left field. A friend of mine, Peter at Plantip, also known in the States as Concept Plants, they're a breeder representative company, and they represent the breeder at Louisiana State University that bred edible ornamental sweet potatoes. And so there was, I think, 5 colors originally released. These 2 are the ones that really knocked our socks off. These are the Treasure Island sweet potatoes. That's Calcura, which is the bronze leaf on the left, and Macatea is the chartreuse leaf on the right. So those pictures that you see, those are grown without PGRs. That's exactly what they look like, being grown in a container situation. They can grow in the ground, they can grow in a garden, they can grow in a container. They will get a little bit bigger than something like the Sweet Carolines from Proven Winners tend to stay a little bit on the compact side. These are growers. These will put on a little bit of running, but they produce these beautiful, perfectly edible sweet potatoes. So it's a dual purpose plant like we've never had before in Chef Jeff. And these are going to be available in the 6-inch round pod. If you buy our citronella or our rhubarb, they come in a 6-inch round, 6 per tray. That's the package that these are going to be grown in. Taro root. Taro root is one thing that we got in trials a couple of years ago, and it was a great grower. It's obviously, you can see based on the photo there, it's an alocasia. It's an elephant ear, but it happens to be one where the tuber, you cook it and eat it, and that's where like taro chips, and they make taro flour out of it. But it's absolutely stunning. I had this picture came out of my yard. I have a drainage ditch in my yard, and so I planted them there, and they've absolutely flourished there. So I can't wait to dig those up and cook them and eat them this winter. New heirloom tomato, Ramapo. So just because I know I'll get this question once we get into the season next year, and some of you might have already realized this, the tomato we sell as the Jersey tomato is Ramapo. But we had customers within the state of New Jersey that said, well, why aren't you growing Ramapo? And we tell them what we are. That's the one we grow as Jersey tomato, blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, people want to know that it's Ramapo. So even though it says Ramapo on the back of that label, we're going to offer Ramapo in 2 different packages. One that'll say the Jersey tomato in the premium line, and one that says Ramapo in the heirloom line. If one crazy outsells the other after 2 or 3 years, we probably will do away with that one. But for the time being, we're going to offer tomato Ramapo in both packages. These relate editions did not make the catalog. Blueberry Bonus, it's very similar to Duke. It's a mid-season fruit set. So in New Jersey, that basically means the 1st of July till about the 20th of July. But it's a medium-sized, 3 to 4 foot tall, 18 to 24 inches wide. The fruit is about the size of a dime, maybe a little bit bigger. And Raspberry Nantahala, I realize that the name is a little strange. It's sold under another name called Sweet Repeat because it is a twice fruit-bearing variety, but unfortunately that is trademarked, so we're not allowed to sell it to retail under that name. So Nantahala it is, but it's a twice bearing, so it'll bear a very heavy set in June, and then we'll bet another set around September 1st in New Jersey. Strawberry Ruby Ann from the same breeder as Deliz and Fresca. This is a compact pot type. Will work in the ground. Will work better in a large container. but it sets fruit very similar to Fresca. You know, something in your 1.25 to 1.5 inch size fruit. But the flowers, and I forgive, this is not the best picture. It's the only one I had. The flowers are this bright cherry ruby color. So, and it is an ever-bearing type. So it will continue to throw flowers and fruit essentially from June 1st until probably September. And then world's largest strawberry. World's largest strawberry is a variety called Cabot. It is bred at Cornell University, and they have pictures of there. I could not get rights to the pictures, but they have a plum in one hand and a strawberry in the other hand, and they're essentially the same size. It is only a June-bearing type, so it's a running type. Do better in the ground than it will in a container, but probably would work well in a larger container if you had to. But the fruit that it sets are absolutely massive fruit and good flavor. You know, every once in a while you buy something out of California or Florida where you have these huge fruit and you cut it open and it's white and half hollow on the inside, doesn't have a lot of flavor. That is not the case with this variety. Peas galore. So our galore package, our 8-inch deco with a cage on top of it, we're going to be offering a semi-dwarf pea climbing up inside that metal trellis as a galore package that could grow and set its fruit inside of that pot without transplanting. Getting back to the interest in peas and beans, we thought, you know what, the galore package, that 8-inch, you know, grab and go deco pot seems to be doing really well for our retail customers. Let's offer a pea in that as well. And in the Walk Stars line, this is going to be offered as a quart. We're going to be doing ginger root, and it's literally a ginger root, kind of looks like bamboo, like it does there. You let it grow for most of the summer, and about September 1st-ish, you could dig it off, dig it out, cut the top off, and there you have your ginger root, fresh as fresh can be, right out of the ground. On to shrubs. So we combined last year, all of the, you know, we had Bloom and Easy and Proven Winners and Endless Summer. We had them in separate spots. We kind of combined all those into one spot. So we have one spot for shrubs, one spot for roses, one spot for perennials, and we're doing the same thing here. So as we go through, you'll see we'll be jumping back between different brands. This one in particular, Buddleia Grand Cascade, is going to be in the Blue Label line, so blue pot. This is from Walter's Gardens, and this is the largest flowering Buddleia we've ever tested. The plant itself is, I would call it mid-size, about 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. But if you can imagine that plant being 4 to 5 feet tall, those flowers are about 16 inches long and probably 4, maybe even 5 inches wide at their widest point. It's just mind-blowing how large these flowers are. It's kind of one of those things that you have to see it in person to really understand just how massive those flowers are. And obviously heavy flowering, very floriferous type. I mean, there's more flowers there than leaves. You guys have been doing really well with Miss Ruby in the Proven Winners line of the semi-dwarf. So these are the 3 to 4 foot size Buddleias. So we decided to add on Miss Violet. This is a very late edition, so these will be ready probably mid-June-ish, if I had to guess. But Miss Violet, same habit, same semi-dwarf habit. The foliage is maybe a little bit more silver, and obviously has that nice, clean, violet purple flower spike. The Pugsters continue to sell extremely well. We're seeing growth in Pugster Amethyst and Pugster Blue, but we have I was just given a note by one of my helpers. It was Miss Molly, not Miss Ruby, and I apologize for that. So Buddleia Miss Molly is the one we're growing now. Miss Violet is our new addition. Growth in Pugsters. Obviously, white Buddleia is not going to be anybody's top choice in terms of a top seller, but it is a great plant. We thought, why not bring it into the lineup just to round out the offering? Last year, we added Cotinus Winecraft Black. That's what you see in the right corner of the photo. New for 21, we have Winecraft Gold. This is, in my personal opinion, an even better plant than Winecraft Black. We have some awesome 3 gallons that are going to go into spring as these nice, tight little meatballs, which is something you normally don't say about a Cotinus. I would also argue that you could see it in this picture that those two cotinus are the same age. And there you can see the larger branches coming out of the top of Winecraft Black, whereas Winecraft Gold is kind of keeping this nice rounded shape. And it opens up this genus to a whole new set of smaller gardens. So we've decided to give a shot. We're doing some larger production trials of 4 proven winner Cytisus. We have modest crops, not small, but not large, of Sister Disco, which is yellow with a red center, Sister Golden Hair, which is pure gold, Redhead, which is red with an orange to yellow center, and Rosie, which is the magenta bud that opens to a pinky lavender flower. So far, they look great. You know, we have not seen them flower here on premises yet, but in terms of growth, they're all 4 of them looking really spectacular. The Sister Golden Hair definitely is a little bit on the dwarfer side, but it does look adorable in a pot. So assuming that these things bloom as they're touted to, most likely these will go into full production levels for 22. But we just thought, like our Cytisus offering, you know, it was the same varieties we've been offering for 30 years. Not that we're getting rid of them, we're not. But we felt like we needed a shot in the arm there for Cytisus, and so these 4. Hopefully, my hope is that we can pick at least 2 out of the 4 to keep that are going to be really great. Maybe they're all great, maybe they all stay. We'll see. Deutzia Yuki Snowflake, obviously probably not going to be as popular as Yuki Cherry Blossom, but this thing is a blooming machine. I've never seen flowers on a Deutzia like I've seen on this plant. So based just on the Yuki name alone, we were probably going to add it. Then I saw it bloom and I thought, this thing, I hope it takes off. I really do, because it is an absolute stunner in spring. And let's hope we don't get a frost on April 24th next year and burn every single Deutzia that we have back to the ground. Fingers crossed. When's the last time you saw a nursery had 2 new Forsythia in a year? How about that? All right. Show Off Starlet is from Proven Winners. Magical Gold is from Peter Kolster in Holland. So Magical Gold is going to be part of the Blue Label line, obviously. That's why the badge is there. They are both semi-dwarf, and they are both, in case you can't notice, blooming on old and new wood. So the Magical Gold, that photo is our photo. That was from our trial area about 2 years ago. The flowers are large. They're a much more intense shade of gold, more of a gold than a yellow. And both of these plants are important to me with Forsythia, because the uneducated gardener doesn't need to know that, oh, you need to trim them back really hard after they bloom and then allow them to let go so that they bloom, so that they make old wood for the following year, so that they bloom. They don't have to worry about that with either of these plants. They can trim them into a hedge. They can trim them into a meatball. They can let them go. They cannot do anything to them. And they will most likely have a fantastic floral display come springtime. So that's why I like both of these Forsythia very, very much. One new arborescens hydrangea. This is Invincible Wee White. It's a dwarf. Probably will end up getting put in a 2-gallon eventually. The 3-gallon, they look fine in a 3-gallon. They look super cute in a 2. So we'll eventually get that into a 2-gallon production for future. But man, just super cute, very floriferous, very, very compact growing. Won't flop in the ground, won't flop in a container. So we're really in love with that. We did decide to bring on the Endless Summer Blushing Bride, the white selection, out of a request from a few of our customers. We've heard a few people asking for Blushing Bride. We haven't heard anybody ask for Twist and Shout yet, so we haven't decided to go down that route. But we did add Blushing Bride to our Endless Summer offering. One fun thing that Amy and I did this spring as well, it was from last summer to this spring, is we trialed, I believe it was 24 different hydrangeas from Proven Winners, all Macrophylla and Serrata types. And so out of those 24, these 2 were by far the leaders of the pack. We absolutely love both of these. Hydrangea Rhythmic Blue is a great saturated blue color. We're still looking for that improved Nico blue, that powder, horticultural powder blue. We haven't found that in a newer, updated reblooming version yet, but Rhythmic Blue gets us very, very close. And hydrangea tiny tough stuff, if you're familiar with the tough stuff, the serrata type, they're a mountain hydrangea. They're more than capable of surviving in zone 5A. Tiny tough stuff is a dwarf version of that. This is going to be in a 2-gallon pot. And that photo kind of says it all. I've never seen so many flower buds on a hydrangea in my life. On a 1-year-old hydrangea in a 2-gallon pot, I've never seen anything like this. I should also note that because it's a serrata type, it probably comes into bloom a solid 2 to 3 weeks before the macrophylla, so it helps us extend our hydrangea blooming season. Hypericum Sunny Boulevard is I believe it's a U.S. native species, but flowers are smaller, but a lot of them. We did trial this. It did hold its color throughout summer. It did not burn. The foliage did not get rust, and it didn't break down or flop apart like some of the other native Hypericum tend to do in the warmer season months. Most of them are native to a much colder climate. So you give them 90 degrees and dew points in the 70s, and sometimes they don't like that. This one seemed to do just perfectly fine. And from our friends at Blooming Easy, Lonicera Thunderbolt. This is a shrub Lonicera, semi-evergreen type. It's only zone 6 hardy, so we don't know what our full sales potential will be, because since most of you are cooler than zone 6. But we did put this in both pot trials and in-ground trials, and it is absolutely a beacon of brightness in the landscape. We love this plant. So we really hope that it'll take off. If anything, it looks so darn cool in that blue Bloomin' Easy pot. It's a great looking retail package. Philadelphus Illuminati Tower is an upright growing mock orange. You can see from the towers of blossoms that are coming up. Single flower, but super, super fragrant and very floriferous type. So we really like that. Physocarpus festivus gold is going to be replacing lemon candy. So lemon candy is out. We felt like that plant had kind of run its course, so the sales are kind of dropping, partly because of yellow leaf plants can struggle a little bit sales-wise, but also I felt like there were just better plants out there. So we do like festivus gold quite a bit, so we decided to swap that out because we don't need both of them in our lineup. Double Play Red was another one asked for by name. We brought on Double Play Doozy last year, which is similar to Red in that it has that same cherry flower, but Doozy has the burgundy new growth. Double Play Red, we were told it's just a slightly heavier bloomer. It doesn't have the foliage interest, but it has more of a flower power. So we decided to bring Double Play Red into the line. And Vitex Blue Diddley is a semi-dwarf, 4 to 6 feet tall, rather than the 8 to 10 foot tall of the straight species version that we sold for a long time. Your sales have told us that you're just not interested in that straight species monster of a Vitex, so we decided to give Blue Diddley a try. It's a more intense purple flower on a much shorter, compact stature, so we think between those two things should really grow some interest in Vitex, especially with summer sales being quite strong, both last year and this year. On to perennials. Late edition perennials. Allium Chivet was supposed to be added this past year. Unfortunately, that was a COVID cut. Some plants just never made it out of the gate this year because of supply issues because of COVID. And so this coming year, we've got it back in the line, and we're really happy to offer it. It is a non-seeding, you should say the breeder calls it highly infertile chive. So it's smaller flowers than the other alliums that we grow, but it blooms almost a month earlier because it's more of a chive type allium than something like Millennium or Medusa. This one came out of left field for us. This is in our trials this spring. This is Armeria Dream Area series. There's a couple of colors. We can only pick up one of them. We'll be picking up another one in 22. But this is Sweet Dreams. This is a pseudo-Armeria species, which we've tried in the past and we did not do well with. We were told by the breeder that it's going to be way hardier, way easier to grow, and we've heard that story, song and dance. We're like, yeah, sure. These grew 72 plants in the ground last fall, 72 plants alive, gorgeous, and blooming this spring. They bloomed for over a month, and then somebody came in and bought them all. but we are absolutely blown away. This is a 2-scale photo. That's Mini Stick Rose on the left and Dreameria Sweet Dreams on the right. So the flower is probably 2 to 3 times the width and so much more landscape presence than what you think of when it comes to Armeria. 4 new asters. All our old asters, Purple Domed, Kick 'em Series, Blue Autumn, they're out. They're gone. We've been somewhat unhappy with them for a while. We felt like there was issues with the stock we were getting. We just did not care for the end product that we were trying to ship to you guys. So we've gone in 2 different directions. For the Purple Dome types, we've gone with Grape Crush and Pink Crush. If you follow our Instagram feed, we posted a picture of these from our trial garden earlier this week. I believe it was Monday. These are from Walter's Gardens. Phenomenal breeding. I mean, just the Grape Crush is like Purple Dome, but much more saturated purple, much heavier bud set, and a slightly larger flower. And Pink Crush is akin to Vibrant Dome, but much brighter on the pink spectrum, less magenta and more pink. It's something that's completely out of left field for this type of aster. And then for the New England type asters, the more compact form, we went with the Island series from Doom and Orange. That's the bright blue on top is Barbados. The mauve is Tonga. There are more in that series. I think there's 5 colors that we trialed. These 2 are the 2 that you need to have. And so hopefully we're gonna keep searching for more asters because the sales of aster continues to grow for us. But these 4, we thought they are market ready and we're ready to send them your way. Astilbe, I realize this is a lot. There's 5 new Astilbe on this screen. We've completely revamped our Astilbe production. It was one of those things where we thought what we were shipping was okay, but we know we could do better. So we changed our production around, and because of that, we went to a new supplier, and this new supplier suggested these 5 varieties to trial. We trialed them all. We love them all. So the pictures for most of them are fine. I'll give you a couple of caveats. Black Pearls is a Chinensis type. Think of it as Visions, but much more purple. Key Largo is a later blooming type, similar to Delft Lace, but with a larger flower and greener foliage. Spotlight is a Chinensis type with pink flowers over top of that chocolate brown foliage that you see. Visions Inferno. So this photo is a little funky because it was taken in an off-season bloom. It's actually much more pink than this photo would tell you. So I realize Visions Inferno is kind of a strange name for a pink Astilbe, but it is very heavy flowering, very chunky flower, and it is very impressive in the landscape. And we'll get you better photos come this spring. And Unique Raspberry is the latest release in the unique line of Astilbes that are probably the best line of dwarf Astilbe that we can get our hands on. Someone just asked about mildew resistance on the asters. I can say with definitiveness that the Pink Crush and Grape Crush do not have the same defoliation issues in containers as Purple Dome and Vibrant Dome did. I'm not saying they won't lose any of their foliage down underneath when it comes time to blooming, but obviously when it comes time to blooming, you're not going to be able to see that. But they are a much, much better improved version of that species of aster. As far as the Island series, we still have these in pot trials, and we have not seen mildew one on these yet, which is one of the reasons they really kind of knocked our socks off. Is they've been very low care and forming a really nice shaped package without a lot of pinching or inputs, no PGRs, and then lack of mildew is kind of like the icing on the cake. So we've been really, really happy, really happy with these so far. And Ryan at Ted Lair, I see your question. I'll make sure that we send some of these out to you on your first truck. I want you to trial them out there because mildew can be regional. So just because we don't have that issue here does not mean that you won't have it there. That being said, these Grape Crush came out of Western Michigan. They did not have mildew issues there, and they really haven't had many here as well. Veronica, we are deciding to bring in Veronica Jack of Diamonds, which is in the Proven Winners line. This is a late edition. We were offering Jack Frost and Sterling Silver this past year. We really couldn't see a big enough difference between those two. And obviously Jack Frost has the name. So instead of doing Jack Frost and Sterling Silver, we decided to do Jack of Diamonds because it's a slightly larger, slightly more vigorous Jack Frost, and it has that Jack name. So hopefully that ties in with the consumers that know Jack Frost. And also it's going to be in a completely different package. It's going to be in the full 1 gallon Proven Winners pot. 2 new Campanulas, Spring Bell White and Spring Bell Blue. These are from Syngenta. These came out of I believe a Polish breeding program that breeds for what I would call hothouse bellflowers, the type that you can buy in a 4-inch pot in the grocery store, that looks really good for 3 weeks and then it dies. This came out of a breeder that said, well, I don't want it to just die. I want that same compact, complete coverage look, but I want it to be a true perennial. I want it to last the test of time. And so Spring Bell came out of that breeding. So it's super compact, 8 to 10 inches, but super, super flower coverage. And it's, I hate to use mums as an example, but that mum, that side to side flower look, that look is trying to be recreated by plant breeders around the world for different types of plants. And I feel like Campanula is going to get to that point where you just have an outstanding floral display from edge to edge. Dianthus Paint the Town. We had Paint the Town magenta and Paint the Town pink, I believe, this year. Sorry, my brain's losing me a little bit, but Paint the Town red is the newest in the series. I will be honest, I wish it was redder. It's a bit on the cherry side. I feel like they'll probably come out with a Paint the Town red improved in a year or two, and this will get replaced. But it is a fantastic reblooming Kahori type Dianthus, just like the rest of the Paint the Towns have been. Digitalis Pink Panther, very late edition, was just added to our production line about a week and a half ago. This is from American Taki Seed Company. It's a semi-dwarf semi-sterile digitalis, which means it should last as a perennial, and it also should bloom about twice as long as a normal digitalis would. These are going to be in a 2-gallon pot because they're supposed to top out around 32 to 38 inches tall. And the trials that we saw, this picture was taken at Taki Seed in California. They were actually in 1 gallons, and they were about 32 inches tall, no PGRs. So I really do like this look. I would also argue that coming from seed, the color consistency is pretty spectacular. They had about, I would say, 300 1-gallon pots on display, and it was hard to tell that any one was different from another, which is a sign of a really strong seed strain. Echinacea Artisan Series. These are new from, they originally came out of Pan American Seed, but it's being sold through Keefe Seed, which is a Ball Horticultural Company. These were part of the Autumn Editions line this year. We decided to bring them into both the Blue Label brand for earlier season and as Garden Stars Court for spring sales. But red ombre and orange are seed-grown echinaceas that are fairly stable color ranges. Now, I say fairly stable. There will be some variation. They call it red ombre because it has a little bit of variation, just like a paint would, mixing paints. So there's going to be some reddish oranges. There's going to be some almost salsa reds, and there's going to be everything in between. But overall, it's a red echinacea from seed. Same thing with orange. You're going to get some softer pastel oranges. You're going to get some things that are closer to red orange. But I would say these two photos are more or less the average of the color range that you're going to get. And because they're from seed, they're also going to be substantially cheaper than the tissue culture varieties that we know and love. And we'll still keep selling those because of their consistency and because of how well we know they perform in production and retail and in the landscape. But the artisans are coming on strong. We've added a couple of new Echinacea Sunseekers over the past couple of years. We added salmon and pink. We love that semi-double look, that stacked petal look that we're getting from this breeder. And Sunseeker Rainbow is the latest in this series. It opens a pastel-y orange and matures to what I would call more of a coneflower purplish magenta. And so you get a little bit of a yesterday, today, tomorrow look on the plant where you get a multicolored effect from one flower to the next. Same compact habit, same upright habit. and we expect this to be gangbusters. We probably will not be able to get enough of this plant, especially since it's brand new. We will be getting some of the first plants to ever hit the States. We trialed basically the whole lineup of proven winners Echinacea. This one we think is the one we need the most in our lineup. They're all very good. Some were better than others, but this yellow, my darling, was a really great performer. And we also see the growth in yellow Echinacea specifically to be gaining some strength and growing some legs. So we decided to bring on yellow, my darling, as a proven winner option. 2 new dwarf Guiam, the Tempo series. These are long blooming, unlike some of the other Guiam. We dropped Guiam Mai Tai. We loved Mai Tai, but the bloom window was so short for us, and containers really only bloomed for about 3.5 to 4 weeks. We realized it blooms a little bit longer in the ground, but for us, that means that our shelf life for you guys, our customers, was unfortunately a little bit on the short side. So we leaned on our friends at Terra Nova Nurseries. They sent us these 2. So far, so good on these. They bloom for 3 months. I will say that the yellow, that picture of the Tempo yellow was taken in cooler temps. So cooler temps will cause the buds to be a little bit more pink, and then they open to yellow. I saw this in California in a warmer season, and it was pretty much yellow on yellow. But rose yellow, and we're working on a 3rd color for 2022. We added Heuchera Forever Purple this past spring. Loved it even as a spring potted Heuchera, which not all Heuchera do well as, but it was a strong grower, had great glossy purple foliage. We thought, you know what, let's do it again. We really like this breeder. Let's try Forever Red. And so Forever Red's going to be the same deal as Forever Purple was. It's a spring pot, going to be ready probably mid to late June. But we thought, you know, that color we really only have on Heuchera Fire Alarm, which we definitely cannot spring pot. So let's extend the season with a nice strong red Heuchera with Forever Red for early summer sales. Heuchera Grape Soda, pinky to purple leaves, pink flowers. Really love this one. It's been around a little while, so it's by no means bleeding edge breeding, but it has stood the test of time in a bunch of different Heuchera trials. So we thought, you know what, let's bring it on. We know it's a strong bloomer. We know it's a strong grower. So we thought that was a no-brainer to add to our Heuchera offering. Now these are brand new, especially Sienna on the right. These are the Northern Exposure series of Heuchera. These are, again, all from Terra Nova. These were bred with a species of Heuchera that's native up into Canada. They're testing, I believe, the red in the middle has already been tested, certified Zone 3 hardy. Then the other 2 were going to be tested this coming winter, but they don't see why they wouldn't be a fully Zone 3 hardy Heuchera, which I realize there's not many of you listening right now that are in Zone 3 or 4, but it does make it a little bit more comfortable in the colder areas of Zone 5 and the warmer areas of Zone 4 to know that these are not going to be an issue with overwintering. So black, it does flower, but the flowers are fairly unexciting. They're cream white, similar to what the red flower is there. Sienna obviously is completely different breeding, brought into that hardy native bloodline, but obviously very floriferous, very showy leaf, very showy flower. Honestly, I think all 3 of these are going to be really great sellers. Head Over Heels Hibiscus was new for us this year. We had Blush, which is the Whisper Pink, and Passion, which is magenta. This is Adore. This is more of a saturated bubblegum pink, and the foliage, it's kind of hard to see it in this, but it starts out burgundy and it almost fades to a frosted color, which almost gives it like a bluish hue. It's very hard to see it in a photo, but once you see it in person, it is really a phenomenal hibiscus. And one thing I would say is this probably blooms a solid, and when I'm saying blooms, I still have some hibiscus in my yard that's blooming now. They're throwing a flower here, a flower there. I looked at our stock block of this about 2 weeks ago, and they still look like they were in full bloom, whereas everything else is kind of down to the flower here, flower there. So I'm going to guess that these give you a solid 2 to 3 weeks longer of heavy bud set and bloom performance than most hibiscus that we grow. Hibiscus French Vanilla from our friends at Proven Winners, Walter's Gardens. This is a chocolatey brown leaf, but the flower, it is a color break in that the buds are yellow. They're just straight up yellow buds, and they open to this nice creamy white flower. You know, it's not the most compact of plants. I wish it was a little bit tighter. It's going to be a 4 to 4.5 footer, I believe. But for that color in a hibiscus, we really have never had anything like this. Hosta Pocketful of Sunshine. We just added one new Hosta. It's going to be in the Blue Label brand this year. We just fell in love with it. We actually fell in love with it from this photo. This photo was in the Walter's Gardens catalog, and we called up our rep and we said, "Hey, Tim, what's the deal with that?" And he said, "Well, it's a great Hosta. I don't know why you guys aren't growing it." And I said, "Well, let's add it to the line." So it's a very glossy leaf with that center blotch of chartreuse gold. So we fell in love with it. It's semi-dwarf, could work in the border, could work a little bit back of the border, could work in groups. So it's pretty versatile. I'm pretty sure it's a purple flower, more of a saturated lavender to purple flower in June, in early summer. So the Niphofias, the Rockets Red Glare, and I believe it's Orange Blaze that we've been selling under the Proven Winners line, we're actually going to shift those to 1 gallon production because they're nice, strong blooming plants, but they did not look, we were putting them in 2s because we thought, well, the flowers are going to get really tall. It'd be a little top heavy. So we put them in 2s, but the retail presentation isn't what we wanted it to be. So we're moving them to 1s, and we're going to be adding Solar Flare, which is probably the best yellow Niphofia we've ever seen, to that offering. So now we have an orange, a red, and a yellow to offer in Niphofia. And Banana Cream was one of the original Proven Winner perennials, and it got replaced for 2021. Is being replaced by Banana Cream 2. Now, the labeling is going to look very similar to what Banana Cream looked before. They're kind of doing a swap out. They want, they want the consumer to not be confused. It's more or less the same habit, but with a little bit more of that edge-to-edge blooming that we talked about, that mum look. And it holds the yellow color a little bit longer than the original Banana Cream was. So for that reason, Banana Cream is going to be off the market completely in the next 2 years. And we decided to go ahead and make the jump this year to Banana Cream 2. Leucanthemum Marshmallow is a limited release Centerton exclusive. We have very few of them. They are going to go fast. This is one of the strongest double flowering leucanthemum we've ever trialed. Most of them, I believe, probably because of something that was bred into them background years ago. Most of them have serious mildew problems. Have not seen it on this. Have not seen it at all. And that flower is just, it's great. How could you not want a leucanthemum flower like that? You know that'll fly off a shelf at retail. Lupine Westcountry continue to do well. Continue to great feedback from our customers on how well they sell. They are maximum impact plants. This is the newest in the line. This is Rachel de Thame. Well, unfortunately, that name means almost nothing to anyone in this country. You can look her up on YouTube. She is a British TV host. She hosts her own gardening show, or gardening lifestyle show. Think of her like a Joanna Gaines, but more in the garden than in the living room type of thing for British television. So this was named in honor of her. Obviously, white inner flower, super bright pink outer flower. It's completely different from everything else in the lineup. So we thought, despite the strange name that no one will pronounce properly, we thought it'll be an easy addition. Penstemon Coral Baby. If you were lucky enough, we had a couple of customers actually buy up our trial block of this from spring of 2019. This is a Barbados type. So it's not super hardy, only zone 5, but 5B, but we know that it's overwintered in Colorado with good drainage. We know it overwintered here 100% in our containers, which is saying something because most Penstemon Barbados that we've tried in the past just did not cut it for container production. So we love the color. We love the habit. It's fairly rounded with age, gets about 24, 26 inches tall and wide. And that color is a color that we just don't have enough of. And so once we saw 100% of them overwintering in pots, we thought, you know what, let's move forward with this. So we had to contact a supplier in Colorado that literally went out and took cuttings off of the plants that we saw when we were visiting out there for PPA a few years ago. So now we have this in production for spring 2021. Phlox Backlight. This is part of a series in Proven Winners. I don't like series names because they don't mean anything to a lot of people. But there are two other colors in this series. There's a pink with an eye, and then there's a really saturated magenta. We're trialing both of those going into next year. Backlight, we went ahead and pulled the trigger on because we did not have a good mildew-resistant white phlox, because we gave up on growing David a couple of years ago. We're not going to sell you something that either we can't keep healthy, or you guys can't keep looking good at retail, or the consumer can't keep looking good in their yard. We did not see the point continuing with it, so we just discontinued it without having a good replacement. This is that replacement. So Phlox Backlight, Proven Winners, 1 gallon pot, full 1 gallon pot. So this will be our final, 3 years late replacement for David. We do like the looks of the other two in this series. So assuming that they have the same mildew resistance that we've seen on this, which is basically pretty darn squeaky clean, we'll probably end up adding both of those for 22. 3 new Proven Winners sedums. I realize that's a lot to throw at you at one time, but these are awesome plants, and they're all different enough from one another that they all can fit their own spot. Back in Black, the best upright black sedum we've ever had. That's it. We've done the blackjacks and the raspberry this and the black something else. We've been through the trials, we've been through the production failures, and this one is finally the one that we can say, okay, this is it. This is finally what they've all come down to. So Back in Black is a great overdue dark leaf upright sedum. Coral Jade is from the same bloodline as Lemon Jade, if you're familiar with that. So the buds are, you can see it in this photo, are the super bright green jade color, and then it opens to a coral pink. Tiramisu is from the same breeding, if you're familiar with Steal the Show, which is more like a mounding type. This has a saturated dark, almost hunter green leaf with a little hint of blue in it, reddish stems, and obviously the flowers are small, but again, we're getting back to that mum look, that side-to-side flower coverage, and that is one plant that you see there. So that's one plant getting about 20 to 22 inches wide and about half that much tall. So if you got any of our Pure Joy, Pride and Joy, Popstar, Superstar sedum from the Proven Winners breeding this past year, you already know that they look great in a pot. They look great great at retail. The feedback from you guys has been phenomenal. So we thought, these 3 are all different enough. They're all knocking our socks off in terms of look. Let's just go for it, and we're going to add all 3 of those. And I believe that there's only 2 or 3 growers in the country, us being one of them, that are going to have these 3 for next year. So if you want these, you're most likely going to have to come through us. Veronica snow candles. Again, my friend Peter at Concept Plants, he said, you're selling the heck out of royal candles. You should be doing snow candles. And I said, look, it's a white Veronica. How many people want a white Veronica? He said, just trial it. So we did. Okay, it's a really, really nice white Veronica. Mildew is not an issue with this, just like it's not an issue with royal candles. Will it get downy mildew? Yeah, it's possible. But we saw a lot of downy this year. We did not see it on this plant. So that's a good sign for us. Obviously, the sales of this are not going to be what they are for royal candles, but, chocolate and vanilla. Everybody's got their flavor, so now we're offering some vanilla Veronica. And the late edition, we just found out we were going to get these about a week before we potted them. This is a unique baby pink. We added baby blue this past year. We had them in trials 2 years ago, and we wanted to pick them both up because of their mildew resistance. We had probably one of the worst outbreaks in a certain part of our nursery of downy mildew on Veronica specifically, and that's why we ended up discontinuing a few varieties last year, because we're like, man, if this is what they're going to do, if they're just going to be magnets for mildew, we don't want them. And we dug through this house of these dying Veronica, and there was these 2 rows of plants, and what they were is unique baby pink, unique baby blue. So we immediately put in orders for both of them. So we will now have both colors for spring. We had a great number of the blue this year. We'll have even more coming into next year, and we've got a really nice supply of unique baby pink. And I believe these were added onto the order blank. So if you've got the original copy of the order blank from August, you got to hop on the weekly email and click the link to download the new one. This one should be on it now. A couple new grasses to speak of. Hakonechloa All Gold. We are doing extremely well with Macro Aureola, the old perennial plant of the year variety, the striped variegated variety. I was surprised how much people liked Benikaze, which is straight green throughout most of the year, and then this time of year it turns bright red. I love it, but I thought, oh, what's the retail interest in that? Obviously, much more than I expected. So we're bringing on All Gold, which is a solid gold leaf, as the name would entail. Hakonechloa. It will not handle the amount of sunlight that Benikaze or even Macro Aureola will. It does need basically all afternoon shade. It will not handle afternoon shade in the hot months of summer. It'll toast this thing. So definitely make sure that it gets afternoon shade. How's this for something strange? A variegated Schizachyrium. This is Chameleon, another selection from our friends at Concept Plants. So it's they won't tell me what it's a mutation of, but it is a sport that was found in a supposedly trade available variety of Schizachyrium. So I don't know exactly what it came from originally, but it's got a really nice habit. It doesn't bloom very heavily, which is, I would say, both a positive and a negative. A negative that it doesn't bloom, but a positive in that it also doesn't get super big and then lodge over. So that's an issue with a lot of Schizachyrium. Moving past that, it's a great look for a schiz that's going to be looking good basically all year. So we will... Oh, sorry, they're handing me questions. Question about Septoria leaf spot on Veronica. I will admit, I don't know. I will look that up and I will get back to you directly. We'll find out. Anyway, Schizachyrium Chameleon, variegated Schizachyrium, and a great colorful option for native grass. I mean, not many native grasses look like that, let's be honest. Another late addition, Clematis Marie Louise Jensen. This is bred, I believe, in Poland, and we realized that we did not have a good strong purple. I realized we have Jack Manai in our Clematis offering, but let's be honest, Jack Manai is a variety that we grow because people think they know that name and they think that's what they want, not because it's a great plant. Marie Louise Jensen is a great plant. It's 1,000 times more floriferous than any Jack Manai I've ever seen. So we wanted something that was a strong bloomer, larger flower, but a good saturated purple. We thought it was a blank spot, an open spot in our Clematis offering, and so that's why we've brought this into our lineup. Lonicera Sensation. We are going to phase out some of our Lonicera offering that's not performing the way we want it to. This photo was taken at a display garden in Vancouver, but it looks just as good in New Jersey. So that tells me that it's probably one we need to be growing. It is more of that wild honeysuckle yellow type of color, no pink in this, but we have not seen any mildew on it. It is vigorous and it is very heavy flowering. So we thought, why not go ahead and throw it in the lineup? So this will be Proven Winners packaging, full 3-gallon with the same wooded trellis that our Blue Label packaged Lonicera have. The Patio Living, our summer color line, seemed to do extremely well this year. It actually has been doing very well for a couple of years. It's showing us that there are a good number of you that need something new, fresh, and colorful for summer. So we're going to try a couple of different things over the course of the next year or two. And so the first of that kind of out of left field thing was Salvia Black and Bloom. This is from Ball Flora Plant. So it's a cutting grown salvia. I won't even try to pronounce the species, but it's a zone 8, so semi-tropical salvia. It does get fairly large. We'll get about 3 feet tall and wide eventually. So this is going to go in a 10-gallon deco. But we were looking for something to offer fairly economical choice for something that you could buy in June or July that would still have color in November. And that's really, well, barring an early frost. But that's what we're looking for value things that you can still offer in a large container that are going to throw a nice big splash of color at retail for summer sales to keep people coming back in the door and giving them something different. Could you be selling this as a 5-inch in the springtime? Yes, but seeing it as a large mature plant with a couple hundred flower spikes on it in June or July, I think it's something that has some legs. So we're going to throw this out there and see if it sticks. But the plant itself is great. The stems are black, the calyx are black, and then you get that nice pop of blue-purple on top of it. And then we had a trial of a yellow calla lily this past spring, and our production manager said, hey, those yellow calla trials look really good. Why don't we have a yellow in our offering? And I thought to myself, that's a really darn good question. So we just sort of put 2 and 2 together. We called the guy that sent us those trials and say, okay, hook us up for next year. So we're going to offer a yellow dwarf calla along with the orange, magenta, black, white, and black with the purple eye that we've been offering for the last few years. We'd like to offer them more, but it is very tough to keep those looking good in a production setting through the summer. So we want to make sure that we get a nice, good splash of color for late spring, early summer. We get them to you, and you get them to your consumers when they're looking prime. On to Garden Star's Quartz. Not a ton of new offerings. I did say that we added the Echinacea Artisan series for late spring sales. We have stepped away from the Magnificent series of Viola, not because we didn't like them, but because they were a supply chain nightmare. The Celestial series from Valhort is actually from a similar bloodline, similar breeder as the Magnificents, but a much more mature and stable supply chain. We did really well with 2 new colors of that series of Viola this past spring, so we decided to go ahead and add the other 2. Twilight is that yellow fading to almost a mauve into that grayish blue background is something completely different from anything that we've grown. And then Starry Night, I would call like an improved Ethane. We are still going to keep growing Ethane, but this is definitely a step up in terms of bloom power and a little bit more fragrance too. 2 new offerings in Stone Cottage Farm. We hear you guys. We're doing everything we can to get you more of Stone Cottage. Obviously, it's a hit with your customers, and the feedback that we're getting, even at the consumer levels, is pretty awesome. So we're trying to do what we can to round out that offering. We did cut a variety out that wasn't performing that well for us, and we're adding in Merlot. I don't know if it's pronounced Merlot. I don't pronounce if it's pronounced some other way, but I'm going to call it Merlot, even though that spelling is correct. It's Meerlo, but it's a variegated French hybrid lilac. So supposedly it will bloom, but with vernalization, and because it's zone 8 hardy, I'm not sure how we're ever going to give it that vernalization. But even without the flowering, it is a very showy plant. This has been available for a couple of years in the Southern Living plant brand. So if any of you guys are tuning in from Texas or the Gulf states, you might have seen this plant from Southern Living. But in terms of the Mid-Atlantic and the northern areas, you have not seen this plant much yet. So we kind of jumped on the opportunity to get a hold of the genetics for it. And then for a hardy lavender, Sensational is from the same breeder as Phenomenal. It is a few steps better in breeding in that it's a much sturdier plant. Maybe it doesn't get quite as large as Phenomenal. If you've seen a mature Phenomenal, if you give it room, that thing will get 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. This is going to be a little bit smaller and a much heavier flower set. Now, if you Google this plant, you'll see pictures of flowers. It's the same picture on like 10 different websites. It's a bunch cut of flowers, and it's these bright purple, huge flowers. I'm not 100% convinced that that's a real photo of what these flowers look like. That's why we just took a picture of the great foliage out of our trial block. We were so impressed with just the foliage alone. We went ahead and went for it. So this is not going to bloom without vernalization. So we're going to have it eventually in Blue Label as well. So we'll have it blooming here. When it does bloom, if it blooms that huge, bright purple flower, I'll be the first to say I was wrong. That's the correct photo, but I don't believe it yet. One thing we do know, it is a great grower. I want to say phenomenal grower, but I can't, because phenomenal makes you think phenomenal. It is a sensational grower. And sometimes that's what we need for gardeners to be successful, is we need plants that are going to be sensational growers. And this one does fit the bill. How about a new Apster daylily? Haven't had one of these in years. This is out of our own bloodline now. So the Dr. Apps retired a number of years ago, and since then he's still producing tens of thousands of seedlings a year and still sending them our way. But this one actually was the first selection in the Apster line to come out of his breeding that was taken over here at Centerton Nursery. So Aren't You Lucky Returns. We wanted to call it Aren't You Happy Returns. For some reason, the Daylily naming, the Daylily Society didn't like that name. So it's Aren't You Lucky Returns. It is a little bit on the dwarf side. It's going to be about 14 to 16 inches tall. Fairly early to bloom. I would call it, here in New Jersey, it starts blooming, I would say around June 1st, which is for daylilies is quite early. And blooms solid for 75 to 85 days. So 75 days is kind of like where we want the Apsters to be, to at least bloom for 6 to 7 weeks. And so this will push it out a week or two beyond that. But it's a great different color and look. First double flowering offering in this line. And I would also say that a lot of reblooming doubles, they only are double on the first set of blooms. We've actually seen 4 sets of blooms on that this year, and the 4th set of bloom, yeah, there was a single every once in a while, but for the most part, this stays very double throughout its entire lifespan of its bloom cycle. So we're really excited about Aren't You Lucky Returns. 2 new trophy takers. Black Velvet Baby is a 4-inch flower, about 24, 25 inches tall. Great landscape presence. Because it's so velvety, it makes it look black on like the eye zone and around the edges and the ruffles. It gives you a very saturated and intense look in the landscape. And we really love the way this looked in our fields. So we thought, it's a no-brainer. And it's also, it's a daylily. It's easy to grow. It doesn't give you a lot of problems, doesn't give you a lot of grief. It just comes up every year and then grows its tail off. Coconut Lime Twist is out of our own breeding program. It's an ivory white that fades to that nice bright lime color, and it's got the little twist at the end of the petal. So we noticed that varieties like Heavenly Angel Ice, like Royal Occasion, they seem to sell really well, and more so in daylilies and other plants. Whites are still in high demand, and so when it came down to this, we thought, well, let's add it, because it'll give our customers another option for a white daylily. Oh, and both of these do rebloom, I should say. They'll both rebloom twice. 2 new roses to speak of, both from Certified Roses in Texas. We just started working with these guys a couple of years ago, and they basically have been sending us the only things in their lineup that they think will be successful with. And so far, they're really hitting out of the park. Most of the trials that they're sending us do look really good. Not all of them are varieties that I think we need, because we've got something just as good, if not a little bit better in our offering. But they've sent us a few things that are really unique and really fill a gap in the hassle-free rose offering. So last year we brought on Marisa Trulio, which is the magenta streaked in yellow. This is in the same painter series. This is Marc Chagall. So it's it's hard to tell by this, but it's a very saturated pink that's actually streaked in yellow at the bud center, but eventually white once the flowers mature. So it almost gives you a really cool candy stripe sort of look once the flower is fully open. And then, because you guys obviously need more purple roses, anytime we see a purple or lavender rose that we think is going to stand up in the mid-Atlantic states, we have to look really close at it, because you're dying for more purple roses, because that's a color that's just not a strong color for most breeding programs. So on the West Coast, they got all the purple roses they want. On the East Coast, we have to be very picky. So we're really happy with Lavender Crush. It's a climber. It's more of an upright shrub. It's going to get throw the long runners upright maybe 3 to 4 feet in the first year, and probably another 3 to 4 in the second year, and that's about it. So it's more like a very large upright shrub than a true climber. But because of its upright and long cane habit, it's going to go under the climbing line. And I'm sure you guys have all heard of Petite Knockout by now. If you haven't, it was part of a joint breeding program from Bill Radler, the original breeder of the Knockout Rose. They were trading genetics with the Mayon family in the south of France. And so they combined some of their cleanest bloodlines. Mayon is where all of the drift roses originated, and Radler is where all the Knockout roses originated. And so they had great, hardy, disease-resistant roses on one side and semi-dwarf and different habit disease-resistant roses on the Mayon side. And so they've been trading genetics for a while now, and this is the first major release to come out of that co-op. So it gets about 18 to 20 inches tall, about 22 to say 26 inches wide. At least that's the most mature plant that I've seen. The picture in the middle on the bottom is actually at Star Roses in West Grove, Pennsylvania. They put in a whole hillside of Petite Knockout last year. And so that is actually a 1 year from a bare root in that picture there. Very cherry red flower, more red and less magenta than the original Knockout and Double Knockout. So it's definitely more of a red rose red. But the flowers are small, semi-double. I'd put the petal count around 15 to 18, I had to guess. But it's a new look for Knockout. It's going to be sold nationwide. It is either going to be sold in a 2-liter pot 6-pack or a 6-quart gallon and a half 8-inch pot. We are going to do the latter. We trialed the 6-inch. It's a neat package. It's a really cute package, but it takes a really long time to finish them from a plug because of how dwarf it is. And because of that, we thought it would end up being too expensive of a product because we'd have to grow it for too long. And we just don't think that we could compete with some of the growers either out of the Deep South or out of Canada that are probably going to be producing this in that package on the cheaper side. We thought, you know what, that's not for our customers. Let's stick with the 6-quart. It's going to be a nice retail size, a great size. It's going to integrate well into the consumer landscape. So Petite Knockout. And last but definitely not least, we are going to be expanding our Bring Back the Butterflies program. We trialed some gallons this past year. They did fine, but we liked the concept that we're going with our Stone Cottage program of the 6-inch grab-and-go handle type, sold in 6 per tray. And so we're going to be doing Incarnata, Tuberosa, and Syriaca in that same 6-inch package. Obviously not in the lavender pot, but it is going to be in that same size pot in the 6 per tray with a handle, with a grab-and-go handle. And I would also say that we are making the commitment to moving all of our Asclepias production into a 100% biological control. So these will never get pesticide sprayed on them, ever. So if a consumer ever comes back to you and says, you know, well, what have you done to these plants? You could say with confidence, 100% biological control. Because we realize that, you know, people are buying these plants as food for caterpillars, food for butterflies, and we do not want to ever put you guys in the situation to say like, well, you know, maybe it's safe, maybe it's not. We're 100% safe, and we're making the commitment to you guys and to the consumer so that we can safely say these are grown, they're safe, they're grown safe, they're safe to be used as an ornamental, as a insect edible throughout the growing season, regardless of when you got them or when the consumer buys them. So that is that. And what is my time? I said it'd be under 90 minutes. We are 73 minutes in, so I'd say we're doing okay. Thankfully, Amy has been keeping up with any answers of questions that have been coming up. I'm just going through, making sure. Is the presentation going to be available to send digitally? Yes, we are going to be uploading this to YouTube either later today or tomorrow morning. I will probably edit out my long pauses or any sniffling or moving of my chair that might come over, and then we'll get that on our YouTube later today. And that's that, guys. If you liked this setup, we can do more things like this going forward. There's lots of different marketing presentations we could do via webinar. I really hope that we're doing this back in person next year, because I do miss all of you very much. I also miss seeing your faked enforced smiles when I throw out my really bad humor. That's something that's missing from the webinar. So I really appreciate you guys joining us today. There's quite a few of you on here, so I really do appreciate that. Again, thanks for joining. Everyone have a safe winter, and we are ready for spring. Let's kiss 2020 goodbye. Thank you much, everybody. Bye.